All right, we know the biggest question for this Commanders team, it's quarterback. Sam Howell is expected to be the starter. I just put out a video that the Commanders put out on their Instagram page yesterday, which will get some people fired up. And I'll put that up as the Junkies poll of the day. It is Sam Howell hitting a deep sideline pass to Terry McLaurin.
Mm-hmm.
So the Junkies poll of the day, brought to you by Van Meter Homes, is simple. Does it get you fired up?
Well, of course it does.
Well, people can respond at
It's probably
Junks
going to be
Radio
like
on Twitter.
92% yes.
And I'm sure this may get you fired up. Here's what Jahan Dotson said about his starting QB.
He's a special talent.
Yeah.
I truly believe it. I always tell people he makes every throw on the field look so easy. He makes it look effortless. His arm talent is insane, and he's just getting better. He's getting smarter every single day, and he's getting more comfortable with us. I feel like once he gets comfortable with everyone, the sky's the limit.
Oh, that's getting exciting.
See, there it is.
See what I'm saying? See the effect it has? Curtis Samuel said the same things, I think, yesterday. I think I saw Curtis. Maybe that was from the day before, but Curtis Samuel was asked about Howell and
I'm not saying
glowing.
he's insane or anything like that. I'm just saying I think he can do the job. But when I hear that from the guy, now listen, these guys also, I'll tell you this right now. I was thinking about this in the shower yesterday.
They probably said the same things about every other quarterback.
They did. There was a guy on the team, you can probably guess who it is, but I won't out him, who told me to my face, and that's why I actually do believe him, but that, like, how good Carson was.
Right.
And that the guys know how good he is.
Mm-hmm.
In fact, like, he thought he was getting a raw deal in those weeks when he wasn't playing. Now, it didn't work out, but this is mid-season. Guy told me to my face how good Carson is.
I think I know who it was.
Yeah. So, they do say, now, he didn't say that on air or anything, but to your credit, they do say these kinds of things.
You go to any camp and watch the guys throw. Remember you talked about it years ago when you were down at RFK.
And I couldn't tell the difference.
Casey Weldon?
It was Casey Weldon. I can't remember who else.
And Casey Weldon was with the Bears, maybe?
Was Danny Werfel here too? I can't remember.
But no,
maybe
I'm
because
saying,
they were all terrible.
But I think you were on the sideline. You were watching these guys throw. And, of course, Casey Weldon was a very good college quarterback.
Yeah.
But these guys, I mean, if you went out and watched Trace McSorley work out, you'd say, oh, my God, that kid can freaking throw the ball.
I know. I agree.
So all these guys really look good.
I agree.
How do they look good on Sundays when it counts?
Right. I agree.
That's the question.
I agree.
I think the question is if someone is stinking in camp, all right, and they're interviewing the wide receivers, what are the buzzwords the wide receivers would use if the guy's not playing well?
The only thing I will say this, I'm trying to process. I'm processing what you're saying. I remember last year, to those guys' credit, and maybe they're just better than me, although I feel like I got elite eyes. I remember those guys saying that Carson was just kind of a mess in training camp. And he ended up playing sloppy.
Yeah.
And there was some talk when
Fitz... They
did
say that.
There was some talk when Fitz was in training camp that
Fitz
he
was looking
struggling.
bad. Mm-hmm. They did say Fitz was looking bad.
Right.
So those guys that have a more trained eye and they're there every day, they were giving us warning signs last year. So that's kind of good if they're praising him this year. Like, if you give them credit for noticing the warning signs last year, you got to give them credit if they're saying positive things this year.
I guess one of the buzzwords that would have me pausing is he's progressing.
Yeah.
That sounds like, he's not where we want him to be.
Well, whatever they're saying about Trey Lance, look, you know what I mean?
But usually, if I
guys that they're not out, that they're not high on, see whatever they're saying.
But the phrase "sky's the limit," that's very jarring.
When he said the arm talent is insane. Now, what I'm thinking, though,
but Trey Lance, let me just say that when you read most of the things from training camp, they're always going to be positive. I just typed up Trey Lance. Trey Lance gets most first-team reps on high-energy day one.
Mm-hmm. What else did they say?
Dude, all I've read is that they're out on, all I've heard from our guests is that they're out on Lance. Like, it's over. They're
another headline here. Trey Lance is a person beloved by teammates, but not as a player.
Yeah. Well, you just threw that in.
A small, no, that's the headline. A small early sign of growth for 49ers quarterback Trey Lance.
Growth.
That's what I'm saying. You
can
growth.
Yeah. That's a buzzword that he's sorry.
Yeah, but you can.
But Ron uses that phrase all the time with Sam.
You can nitpick anybody's critique of any player. You just
I think Ron and I would probably do the same thing, is publicly protecting himself in case Sam, like he's not doing the Shanny bit. Shanny went all in. Listen, I wasn't a particularly big fan of Shanny when it was all said and done because he was so abrasive. But he said, I stake my career with the Beck or Rex thing that these guys can do the job. He's like, I stake my reputation on it. Remember him saying that? It was like an iconic quote. I stake my reputation on it. These guys can do the job. Ron is doing a different thing. Ron's like, yeah, I really like him, but we also like Jacoby.
He did say that.
And we like what Jake Fromm's doing. You know what I mean? Like, he's not going all in. He's kind of going all in, but he's got a couple other chips there. He's not really all in. He's all in. He's got you covered, but he's got some extra chips.
The quote from
and that's
Shanahan, just to remind ourselves of this and looking back on it. So he had Beck and Grossman competing.
Yeah.
John Beck, Rex Grossman. He said, you talk about a guy not being experienced. I believe in the guys. I believe in them, and I've been doing this for a long time, and I put my reputation on these guys that they can play.
Right. Well, he bombed. Now, Rex had moments, of course.
Yeah.
We all know that. And I'm sure Beck, I'm sure he's a talent. I think he's a big-time, quarterback guru now.
I think that Ron is couching it. I do think Sam, from everything you hear, is way ahead of Jacoby in performance. Watch the video at Junks Radio. I put it up as kind of a goofy poll of the day. Does it get you fired up? But I think that Sam, everything we're hearing, is a little bit better in the OTAs and everything leading up to it, and he will be the starter in week 1. But he's couching it. If Sam struggles, and that's a big-time possibility, they have a backup that they believe in.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of times I wonder, so Jahan Dotson says this, but if they asked him right after this, like the follow-up question was, well, tell me about Jacoby Brissett.
Mm-hmm.
He may say very glowing comments that are very similar about Jacoby Brissett.
He's not going to publicly criticize his teammate. That will not happen.
Right.
So he will say positive things. You just have to kind of read between the
lines.
lines.
But I would, is he going to say Jacoby Brissett can't make every throw on the field?
No, what he would say is, well, Jacoby is he's just going to highlight his strengths. Jacoby's an experienced guy. He's leading the way. He knows this offense like the back of his hand already. He's telling us where to be. He can make all the throws. He'll just say that. But
I noticed one thing about Ron, that in these press conferences, one of his go-to phrases, and it doesn't matter what unit it is, whether it is the offensive line, the defensive line, the wide receivers, he just says, we got to work to, they're getting better and got to work together, communicating more. And I mean, it makes sense. And I'm not saying that that's not the case, but that's his go-to answer is got to work together. Communication's got to get better. And the chemistry of the guys working together.
Mm-hmm.
He'll just say, he just kind of says that on every unit.
Yeah. I think there's truth to it,
but
though. He's saying cliches, but I think there's truth to it.
But I think every coach, and we don't pay attention to what every coach says because we're only focused on one training camp. They probably all say about the same thing.
Right, I agree.
That's why I usually toss it all out.
Yeah, I mean.
That's fine. Toss it out. I don't care.
Because the proof will be in the
pudding.
Proof
is in the pudding, and that's 100% true. But I do think.
I think he is talented. I don't think what Dotson says is incorrect. I think all of us would concede he is very talented and has good arm talent.
How many people have said Jacoby's Brissett's arm talent is insane?
I don't know.
Find that one, and then we can say it's equivalent. How many people have said, I'm quite sure nobody has, that Jake Fromm's arm talent is insane? Although I will say this, Jake Fromm was a great college quarterback. I watched.
So was Brissett.
I watched Diami's video. I mentioned this to you last week, where they went out to Florida, and it was all the guys. It was actually Jake, it was Brissett, and it was Sam, and a bunch of receivers and running backs. And Jake looked good. He didn't look like some hillbilly third string. Like, he looked good. That's
what I'm saying. You
exactly.
All these guys, when you're watching them on the field in practice, they look legit.
Right. Although I will say this, and I mentioned this last year, you could tell a marked difference with Heineke's JV arm and Wentz's. You could.
Well, of course.
That was a dramatic difference.
They're two different physical species.
Yeah.
Here's an old scouting report when Jacoby Brissett was at NC State. Strengths, dual threat quarterback, good accuracy, great size for the NFL. He's 6'4", 235. Weaknesses, arm strength, not the best, needs to be more consistent with the deep ball.
That's why people aren't saying, that's why they're not saying insane arm talent.
Holds the ball too long, which results in sacks, tends to rely on the run more than he should. Now that's, of course, his college scouting report. He was class of 2011.
You might not like this, and I'm surprised I like this, but I've just grown to see what the league is becoming.
Well, why does it say 2011? He's 2016.
Sam Howell, who knows? Sam Howell said he loves the RPOs. In other words, he loves the run. And it may, maybe he really fell in love with that in that last year at North Carolina. I thought Taylor Heineke was so good at running, but he, for whatever reason, didn't do it enough. I feel like if Taylor ran as often as he was capable, you know what I mean, and capitalize on that, he might have been more successful. It sounds like they're gonna utilize Howell's legs. In other words, it's a long way of saying I don't think they utilized all of Taylor's strengths. And maybe I'll put that on Scott Turner. Hopefully, I get the sense they're going to utilize Howell's legs, and that's going to open up some things for him. So he can, you know what I mean? Like all these quarterbacks that are dual threat guys, I'm not saying he's Jalen Hurts. I'm not saying he's Justin Fields. But, if he's a poor man's Josh Allen or maybe an old Carson Wentz running, that could really open some things up for him.
But not everybody agrees. I know what the receivers are saying about the insane arm strength. And maybe they know a lot more than the draft analysts. But there are draft analysts that were comparing Sam Howell to Colt McCoy. Okay. In fact, Matt Miller from ESPN was on with Linnell right here on the Fan, and he said, I do not see him as a playoff caliber quarterback. I know people want to believe it, but coming out of college, there was definitely talk in the lead up to the season that he could be a QB1. But he compared him to Colt McCoy and compared the arm strength. He says, I had Sam rated as my number 74 overall player, and I compared him to McCoy. Undersized, shorter guy, a little bit thicker body, not great arm strength.
Well, that's unusual, though.
A lot of people.
That is an unusual
I'm just saying
take.
not everybody's on the same page about that.
Fair enough. But
and he could be wrong. He could be wrong.
Right, but you'll also find college analysts that complimented his arm strength.
100%. Yeah. It's in the eye of the beholder.
So that's weird. That's kind of weird.
So,
because I think your arm strength, you either got a strong arm or you don't.
And you know what? You don't need to have the strongest arm in the world.
You just need to not throw Heineke.
You got to be able to read the field, read the defenses.
Right.
Timing's got to be good. Accuracy is probably the most important.
No one's arguing Brady had the strongest arm. No one's arguing Montana had the strongest arm. No one argues that.
Do you know how many times EB referenced Heineke and his coach? He was the only guy who could read all 5 positions.
I think that's
and read the field. When he was a Heineke backer, now all he does is grill his pop gun arm.
Well, I do think if you put a gun to my head, that's the number one. That's the number one thing is poise in the pocket.